Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nicole Hennessy, Vice President and Director of Communications at Music Biz. This is our sixth iteration of Let's Talk Physical. It feels like yesterday that we put this together during COVID times to bring the physical part of the business together, and we're already at number 6. So welcome here today. Number 7 will be at Music Biz 2023. That will be our second out of 7 that will be face-to-face. And that schedule should come out on Thursday, so be on the lookout for that one. But I'm not going to take up much of your time this morning because I know you're here to hear the numbers from Luminate as well as our 2 panels. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie from Luminate. Jamie, welcome and thank you for being here again.
Thanks so much, Nicole, and to Music Biz as well for having me. Very, very excited to be here as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get things started. All right. You should be seeing it now, I hope.
Yep, Jamie, we're good. We see it.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for the intro. I am Jamie Markinet, Senior Director, Music Insights and Industry Relations at Luminate. Many of you who were here in September, I gave a little bit of an intro. At that time, our name was a little bit newer than it is now. We rebranded last March. Actually, we're coming up on a year in about a couple of weeks here. Many people know us from way back in the day as SoundScan, and then we became Nielsen and Nielsen Music, and then most recently PMRC Data before coming to Luminate in March. We are the source of the Billboard charts, so we are bringing in over 500 data sources a day, and we also have a research team that is out in field in over 30 countries as well, gathering sort of the why to the what, if we consider the what to be consumption data. So today, just a little bit of an overview about what we're going to talk through. We're going to talk through the physical product market. We're going to look at the vinyl landscape. Those who joined the call in September, I spent some more time talking about current versus catalog vinyl at that point. We're going to touch on that a little bit, but I wanted to dive into genre more in this call and talk about some of the things that we saw throughout the rest of 2022 last year as it was referring to genre. We'll also take a quick look at CD genres, a look at CDs, and then, throughout the second half of the presentation, there will also be some year-end albums charts that we will reference as we go along. So without further ado, the overall physical market product place in 2022 was down just over 8% from the previous year in 2021. If you look at this graph, though, what's interesting to me is that it actually kind of sat at around 2020 levels. I think it was down just about 2% from 2020. So overall, albums physical for last year was 100 million. And it was about 102 million in 2020. So we actually kind of landed at that part this year. Digging in deeper, wanted to take a look at vinyl sales, and we'll go through this more, but vinyl sales experienced an explosion, spectacular growth, really, right heading into the pandemic. You saw that, jumped from 18.5 million in 2019 to 27.6 million to 41.7 million. To last year, we tabulated 43.5 million. Now, this is just over a 4% growth rate. And talking with, a lot of probably individuals that are on this call and others around the industry, I know that the capacity issues in the production plants really did slow down the ability to get, new vinyl out there. Our research does show that there is a demand for it and that people are really, really gravitating towards it. I'm in Tennessee, I'm in Nashville. And I know that there are several plants even in the state of Tennessee that are going to be coming on in the next 1 to 2 years. And so hopefully that would, reduce some of those production issues and start getting the vinyl out to fans, because our research does show that the fans are demanding it. When we take a look at the overall vinyl sales and the overall cassette sales here, you can see that vinyl was up 4.2%, as I mentioned before, but you can also see that, yes, the CDs and the digital album were down in pretty good amounts as well. I have the stats here that I'm going to pull up, but CDs were down 23, or I'm sorry, CDs were down 11.6%. Digital albums were down 23%. Overall, vinyl did add 1.75 million units last year. And then on the right side of the graph, you can see cassettes. Now, I'm seeing a lot of artists starting to put cassettes into their web commerce stores. And at Luminate, we're trying to offer a little bit more visibility into this format because it is growing. This past year, cassettes did jump 28%, and they are up 154% since 2020. The growth, though, that we saw from 2021 to 2022 was a little bit slower. It did not add as many units as was added in 2021. I think in 2021, it was a 170,000 unit growth jump since 2020, and last year was about 96,000. But the format is growing, and we're going to be keeping an eye on it on this side as well to offer some more visibility into it. Numbers are small, but given that I even saw a Walkman in the most recent episode of Last of Us that came out on Sunday, it definitely seems that there's interest there and that there are pop culture references as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on. As we start to dig into genre, though, as we said, vinyl sales were up 4.2%. But one of the things I wanted to look at for this particular call was what genres are actually growing faster than that 4.2% if we're considering that the industry benchmark. And you can see that on this chart, it is we have the genres that grew over 10%. So the bars are their volume in units growth over the year previous. The dashed line that is straight across is the industry benchmark in terms of rate. And then the other line, the solid line, is that particular genre's performance and its growth year over year. So top gainers are Latin, dance electronic, pop, children's, Christian gospel, and new age. Those were all over 10%. Dance electronic, that is really a lot of Beyonce. Her Renaissance album was listed under dance electronic, and so that drives the genre. We're going to see that in CD sales as well. But then, a couple of the other top vinyls for pop that we're seeing, though, were Taylor Swift Midnights, Harry Styles, Harry's House, and Olivia Rodrigo Sour. Those were the three top pop vinyl records. Diving in a little bit further, though, and looking at subgenres, some really, really interesting things also start to emerge. Alt rock was actually the top momentum subgenre from last year. The top alt rock albums that were under that format were Taylor Swift Folklore, Billie Eilish Happier Than Ever, and then Taylor's Evermore record as well. But it really, really drove a lot of units, as you can see, that the growth in that category was huge. A couple of other things that we thought were really, really interesting. Contemporary jazz actually grew 23.1%. That's mostly on Norah Jones actually driving that. And, when we also look at the bluegrass subgenre, top bluegrass albums to really drive that one, Sturgill Simpson, Robert Plant, Alison Krauss, and Billy Strings. What I thought was very, very interesting is that, while bluegrass grew 11.6%. When you look at the country core genre, it was actually down 11.1%. So, we did see some of these subgenres really start to kind of take off in their own growth. Now, obviously there's smaller denominators here for this subgenre, but as you can see, like in the case of alt rock, that it really, really did push, a bunch of units there. One other thing I wanted to note is that, we've been keeping an eye on, the current versus catalog conversation, both in streaming and in vinyl. It's kind of interesting because they're inverse to each other. In the streaming world, it's actually catalog that has been starting to eat up a little bit more share and start to pull share away from current. Now in vinyl, it's actually the other way around. And that current vinyl is, getting more share than catalog. What's interesting, though, in this alt rock category, when I was taking a look at it, is that there really are only two currents in the category. And that was Billie Eilish and Red Hot Chili Peppers. Everything else in the alt rock category is Nirvana's Nevermind, Arctic Monkeys AM. There's a My Chemical Romance record. So it does seem that, there are a lot of fans going to these more catalog titles in alt rock to purchase those and, add them to their collection. When we take a look at the top vinyl records of 2022, the top three here, they are current, and I'm gonna include Olivia Rodrigo's as a current because it was released in May of 2021, so it actually reached catalog status in early December of this past year. So it spent the overwhelming majority of the year as a current record. But we are seeing that these currents were starting to drive more sales. Now, in the conversations that I've had, it seems that record labels are also prioritizing currents due to those capacity production issues. So it would make sense that if you have frontline product that you want to get out there, that you're prioritizing those when you're starting to create more. So it also could be a reflection of just that there are more currents in the marketplace. But obviously with someone like Taylor Swift, we know that album release in late October drove I think at one point it broke the vinyl record in the United States with 575,000 units in 1 week, and I think it topped out at 1.57 million total activity for the week. So that was just a juggernaut on all levels. But we are seeing that currents are taking the top share of the vinyl world. One thing I wanted to call out in terms of that share is that in 2022, the split was 33% current and 67% catalog. In 2021, the split was 30% current and 70% catalog. So it did grab about 3% share from catalog over this past year. From our research team, we are seeing some really, really interesting things in vinyl. And this is one of what I was referencing earlier. We are actually seeing that vinyl buyers are more likely to be Gen Z, 22% more likely to be Gen Z. So we are seeing a younger consumer emerge through our research. And when we're seeing Olivia Rodrigo and Harry Styles and Taylor Swift to some extent at the top of the charts, it does seem to fit that we are starting to see a younger consumer. Obviously, that's really, really good news because there is a higher lifetime value for younger consumers. And so as we're growing the format and we're growing the consumer base, it's good to see them come on board. Another thing is that Gen Z actually goes up to age 26 now. And so a lot of these Gen Zers are newly out of college. They might have some disposable income for the first time, really, after their student days. And, we are seeing that vinyl buyers in general, vinyl buyers are spending more money on music, but we're also seeing that within Gen Z as well. Also, our research team was able to put a figure to the age-old question of, well, how many of the people who are buying albums really have a record player? And we found that 50% have a record player. Obviously, that means that 50% do not have a record player. If you're interested about how we came up with this question, we asked vinyl buyers specifically what devices they have, and only 50% of them actually chose that they had a record player. Continuing with a little bit more research on our vinyl buyers. Vinyl buyers they're loyal super fans. They are the first to adopt. I am 88%. I am the first among my friends to discover new music and artists. They are out there hunting for new music. And we also see that just in terms of, how deep and how much activity happens down the long tail in vinyl as well. My friends turn to me for recommendations on new music. They consider themselves a little bit of a music influencer inside of their circle of friends. And again, they are very interested in finding new artists and discovering new music. Wanted to also take a look at the store strata for 2022. So indie stores made up 48.1% of the sales in 2022. What we're looking at here is actually the change since 2015. And you can see that, overall since 2015, indie stores have had 52%, internet mail order 30%, mass merchant 13%. But when we look at 2022, we did see some really, really interesting things. Indie and internet mail order were the biggest vinyl sellers of the year. You can see that, I've called out where Taylor's album did release in that week. Internet mail order actually jumped to 53% of the sales of vinyl for that week. But then, if you're looking just to the right of that, you can actually see that as the holiday period progressed and as, Christmas got closer, it seemed that consumers first looked to, in the early buying season of the holidays, they first looked to internet order. They first looked to chain and mass merchant, but then as it got closer and closer to Christmas, they actually started going to indie stores. And so the week of Christmas, indie stores actually were 52% of the overall sales there. Which was an interesting thing, but I think it makes sense conceptually as well, as people are looking to get out and make sure that they're purchasing those gifts and hunting them down and getting any last minute needs as well. When we do look at the vinyl year over year, or I'm sorry, the week over week, we do see that in 2022, the biggest drivers of volume sales were the record store days. They were the Taylor Swift album launch and then also the holiday period. One thing I wanted to call out and I thought was very, very interesting is that the dashed line actually represents the year previous. And especially during the holiday period, it is uncanny how that lines up in terms of vinyl sales. I think that 25% of all vinyl sales last year came in November and December. And, again, looking at it against the year previous, the consumer pattern in the marketplace for purchasing them was pretty spot on, was pretty identical. Top vinyl artists of the year last year, Taylor Swift was number one, Harry Styles, and then the Beatles actually, with all of the re-releases that they had as well, were number three. I wanted to shift gears and talk a little bit about CD sales as well. Now that we've kind of done a look at vinyl and the genres. So as I referenced at the top of the call, CD sales were down 11.6% in 2021, but some really, really interesting trends came out of that. The most interesting, or one of the most interesting to me, is that world music actually moved from the number 5 CD genre to the number 2. It passed pop last year. Now, this is mostly on the strength of K-pop. We found that the K-pop consumer also purchases a lot of physical product. The BTS release, I think there were 250,000 CD sales in its first week. And we are seeing that K-pop fans are very, very passionate about supporting their artists through the purchases of physical music. Now, how that showed up here again is that world music is now in 2022 the number 2 genre for CD sales. Not only that is that world music actually gained 22.6% in CD sales, while the rest of the format was going down, while they added almost 800,000 units year over year. Dance electronic grew as well. And interestingly enough, you can really attribute this one to Beyonce. She sold 163,000 CDs of her Renaissance album, and dance electronic grew by 157,000, which is a 40% gain for that format. If you were to take Beyonce out of that, it's only about a 6,000 loss actually. So it is interesting that dance electronic remained relatively steady year over year. Looking at the genres, country did decline the most in terms of CD sales year over year. Again, this is only CD sales, but they were actually down in terms of overall volume, 1.7 million units, which is a 31% drop in country sales. Now, talking to a lot of people, there weren't as many, massive country releases last year. But, and we've also seen the country consumer start to gravitate towards other forms of consumption as well, especially, in early days in the pandemic, we saw that. But, I can say that on the on-demand audio side, country music did not quite match the genre, the industry benchmark. The industry benchmark in on-demand audio was 12%, and country came in at 11%. So paced the industry pretty closely, but we did see this pretty big decline here on the CD side. And then, as I said, cassettes. We're trying to keep an eye on them for you, and I'm going to give you a little bit more visibility into them. These are the largest cassette album sales of 2022. There are 3 Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks on here, coming in at number 1, number 3, and number 6. Which, when I saw this, and then when I saw The Last of Us use a Walkman in the most recent episode, I kind of wondered about those, those cultural touchstones, and if those are, if that could kind of push, cassettes even further as well. Interestingly enough, you do see some other things here. Nirvana's Bleach actually cassette on this list, as well as the comedian Bo Burnham. So again, cassettes, are growing. They didn't grow quite as fast as past year as they did the year before, but definitely something to keep an eye on, especially when we start considering them and in the with other cultural touchstones, like again the previously mentioned Last of Us episode. And that actually brings it to the end of my presentation. Would love to take any questions or answer anything that I can.
Hey, Jamie. Well, first of all, terrific presentation as always. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so a couple of call outs. Number one, really exciting to see the continued growth of what I always deem as the lost generation of physical music buyers some years ago, and that's the younger demo. So that bodes well both for the current business and also for the future of our physical business.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that is what our research is showing, that, there's sort of these 2 consumers for vinyl products. And, it is the Gen X and older millennial males, and then it's the younger Gen Z women who are actually emerging through our research as a contingent to buy LPs too, which is, those younger fans, you want to grow it for the future, and having them on board, hopefully, gives reason for optimism to keep them as fans and buying fans, purchasing fans for a long time to come.
Absolutely. And I always use your pie charts as an excuse to kind of slide in there as a friendly nudge to our label friends that rap and hip hop slice of the pie would likely be bigger, again, if we saw certain major artists release physical product, so that we know the demand is there. And so we think that that's definitely a growth potential. And I'd be remiss if I didn't plug on behalf of Disney, although they didn't sponsor this event, Guardians of Galaxy Volume 3. Will they reintroduce the 8-track, or will they have 4 slots on the top cassette list?
That's great. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see, right?
Yeah, that's right. I don't want me to put you on the spot. You don't make those decisions, I know.
No, I don't. I try to report on them though, and it was interesting when I saw that I think that the consumer, how they integrated cassette tapes into the first movie and the second movie and the mixtape, and really brought that in. It was featured, and it's interesting to see that that these cassettes are 3 of the top 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just curious too, I saw some of the comments out there, as far as categorization of an artist, it's subjective sometimes. So, and I'm not even sure if you know this, but someone like a Bad Bunny, for example, do we consider that pop? Is that a dance artist, or is that world music?
So Latin.
I knew that.
He is under Latin. Latin is a one of the genres. There are 4 subgenres under Latin. Regional Mexican is one of them, and some others. I will also say that what we're seeing in terms of Latin is that 4 of the 7 top growing on-demand audio subgenres are Latin, if that makes sense. So Latin is growing, and not only that, but all of the subgenres of Latin are growing as well.
Good call out for sure. And also seeing some comments too, whether or not that comes from Luminate, but as Nicole said, we will have a live version of this segment in May at Music Biz in Tennessee, of course, and we'll try to provide some stats on the vinyl consumption. We know that that continues to grow. The vinyl player, excuse me, the turntable consumption, because I think there's certainly got to be a parallel in terms of the continued growth of players that continues to fuel the growth of the format as well as the consumer base.
Yep. No, definitely. But yeah, and I think that but it isn't, yeah. And I think that a lot of people are purchasing to listen to them, but we are seeing that a lot of people are purchasing them as collectibles. They're purchasing them to display, as well, as, just to support their favorite artist as well. So we are seeing that emerge as some motivators too.
Yep. Makes sense. Well, Jamie, thanks again. Terrific as always. Hope we can coerce you, and kudos to Luminate again for sharing all this great information. Jamie Marconet, the Senior Director, Music Insights and Industry Relations at Luminate. Great to see you, and thanks again.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So vinyl production, we're going to segue into our first panel. How does 2023 and 24 look in terms of meeting production and consumer demand? This is always a top of the list in terms of interest. This drives our business for sure. And are the timelines being reduced? And also the vision and perspective from our industry experts, those that are in the trenches day to day. We have Jazz Wimbledon, who definitely gets best name of the day for sure, Senior Director of Release Management at AWAL, the label, and Billy Fields, of course, many of you know him, Vice President of Commercial Services and Vinyl Strategist at WMX. I hope I got that right, Billy. And Sean Johnson, the Managing Director of Precision Record Pressing. First thing we were going to go into is the Physical Business Action Committee. Also shout out to that group who helps drive these events and physical initiatives. Going to charge us collectively with trying to put together a snapshot of educating both the industry and ultimately vinyl consumers on what goes into the cost of producing vinyl. We've seen the cost go up. We know several of the reasons why. And Mr. Sean Johnson was nice enough to take a stab at drilling this down. This is the first phase of a number of steps into demonstrating what goes into the expense for vinyl. And so we wanted to share that with you as far as kind of our first pass. Sean, thank you again for pulling this together. I think it's very telling. And with that, let's go to the first slide. And so, Sean, I'll let you speak to this, but for me, maybe it shouldn't be a surprise, but looking at print and the percentage of cost that's associated with kind of the four subsets of producing vinyl is exceptionally high.
Yeah, well, thanks, Steve, and hello to everyone. Maybe before jumping into the actual cost breakdown, I would just say a couple words about the overall manufacturing environment for vinyl. As everyone knows, the last 3 years, really from the beginning of COVID, have seen a very persistent deficit in vinyl manufacturing capacity, combined with a very persistent input cost inflation. We've seen this across the board in all components of the business: labor, raw materials, energy, input services. There's been a lot of disruption on the supply chain in terms of timelines as well. We've seen input cost increases ranging from 15 to 40%. Some fluctuations in items, but mostly a persistent increase. Those obviously get passed on into the pricing of the product and then passed on to the retail consumers. We recently saw a print increase, which is kind of across most of the industry in January of this year, in the range of about 10%. The good news on both fronts is that the capacity, and I think people are seeing this for sure, and it's coming very fast, is that the capacity environment is definitely improving. And I firmly believe that the cost environment is achieving stability, and there's actually a reasonable chance that we'll see some cost improvements over the next 12 months or so. Remains to be seen because some of the raw materials are in commodity markets and they can bounce around. This cost model is essentially the same whether you look at it in terms of the cost to the manufacturer or the sales price to a label customer. A manufacturer might have a margin of about 20% across all these different areas. This is set up based on a 140 gram black LP with a simple standard of a printed jacket and a printed sleeve at a 3,000 unit volume level. The elements of the cost structure, the vinyl production and the packaging tend to be fairly variable. So the cost per unit at a low volume or a high volume are fairly similar. The setup cost obviously is a one-time fixed cost. So at 3,000 units, it might be 12%. If this was a 500 unit job, that might be 45% of the overall cost. And we get into the larger jobs, it becomes a fairly small number. Print is basically partially variable. There are fixed costs related to print and then variable costs. So when you go from small to larger order sizes, that print percentage tends to stay at about the same level, around 1/3 of the total cost. This 3,000 unit 140 gram job might price out to a customer at something around $4 a unit. You get down to a 500 unit job, it might end up being about $7.50. And if there were no setup costs involved because it's a catalog reorder, it might be in the range of about $4.50 or so. Maybe we can go to the next slide, Steve.
Yep.
There's quite a bit of noise here. I don't know that this is immediately intuitive to anyone, but I'll just make a couple of comments about some of the elements here. The stampers that we would include in what we call setup are really a variable element. The true fixed part of the setup costs are cutting and plating initially and the test pressing. The stampers will be variable depending on the size of the job. Print, primarily in this particular case, ends up being the cost of the jacket and a printed sleeve. Now, it's standard for vinyl manufacturing that if you don't have a printed sleeve and you use a white paper sleeve, that's included at no cost. But a lot of times in the single LP package, we're seeing single jackets becoming gatefold jackets. So that kind of jacket sleeve combination could be anywhere in the 65 to 75% range. There's obviously other print that comes in, more complicated, bespoke jackets or inserts, but this is kind of a fairly standard package. On the vinyl production side, the PVC compound is incredibly important. The cost of compound was stable for years and years and years until we hit COVID, and then the PVC market went crazy and the cost of the compound went up about 50% or so. There's a reasonably good chance that it'll drift down a little bit as we go forward. Labor really comes in all of these areas because we have labor in packaging, we have labor in vinyl production, there's labor related to cutting and plating, which we pay for the cutting service, but there's somebody on the other end who's actually doing the cutting work. And so we've seen inflation in general over the last 2 or 3 years, across the whole economy, and the vinyl industry has seen it probably at slightly above average rates. I would say we've certainly seen our labor rates go up at least 20%. I mean, we've been pushing them up ourselves somewhat voluntarily to try to make this an attractive place for people to work. I think that's probably about it, Steve.
That's great, Sean. Really informative and really helpful. Let's go to the next slide. And just, full disclosure here, this is just the production element, a huge cost that's associated with it, which we're going to attempt to show some slices of it in May when we get together in Nashville, is the freight that's associated with it. Of course, there's always royalties, the mechanical and performance royalties that are associated with it. We'll also do some additional validating, reaching out to a few additional plants and also the labels, just to do a litmus test to make sure that it's representing what we're seeing across the board. And as I said, we'll roll this out, and flesh it out further. So Sean, thanks again. Very informative and really helpful. And with that, let's bring in our other two panelists. Jazz, first of all, is Jazz there? There she is.
Oh,
Hi, you're dialing in from Sweden.
yes, I'm in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yeah, what's it like 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that?
No, it's not that bad. It's like
Okay, good.
8:30.
All right, I
at
feel a little
night.
better, but you're still putting in overtime. So thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah, it
It's a pleasure to have you here. And of course, Mr. Billy Fields, always great to have you here, Billy.
Good to be here.
So let's jump right into it. So Jazz, as you're responsible for label releases, what are you seeing in terms of turnaround time from planning? It wasn't that long ago. It seemed like we were talking about 6 to 8 month window, sometimes even longer. And we continually are hearing that that's shrinking. Are you finding that to be the case?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the last 2 years, the lead times were just insanely long, and we were having to plan super far in advance. I would say we're getting calls sort of every week at the moment saying now this year there's loads of capacity, the turnaround times are way quicker. A lot of plants promising a lot quicker turnaround, and we're seeing a lot quicker turnaround. But I would say we need to be cautious with it, because one, we have to ship into our supply chains, and that we need to ship like 6-7 weeks out from release. So that adds to it. So even if an artist hears they can manufacture something really quickly, they can't release it that quickly. We still have to ship it into the warehouse, ship it out to retail. And I also am a little bit cautious of us getting all too excited again about loads of capacity available and repeating the same mistakes before and booking everything up and getting the same situation we're in last year. So it is improving, but I am cautiously optimistic.
Okay, we're gonna take that to the bank. Cautiously optimistic. Billy, you do a lot of juggling. Catalog is part of the mix too. You have to make sure, Rumors is always readily available as best as you can over the last few years, as well as new releases. From your perspective, how does it look?
I mean, look, everything's improving. We've tried to continue to preach patience internally, just about what the timelines look like and the reason why they're as long as they are. And then as reality intercedes, you begin to tell people like, oh, it won't be as long. We'll get that turned around faster. I think that the biggest part for us that is improving dramatically and sort of with immediacy are reorders on items that are already set up. So Sean just touched on a little bit about cost of a production run, and you can take out that setup cost on something you're just doing a reorder on. And we're seeing that turnaround time is actually dramatically faster than it was over the last 18 months. And we certainly expect it to even improve more sort of as we get into this year. By mid-year, we're thinking that we're almost back to a normal 8 to 12, but cautiously optimistic is definitely the correct position to hold in this market for sure.
Thanks for that insight. And Sean, obviously you're the ones, pulling the trigger in terms of the production. You're starting to see some available capacity, probably for the first time in quite some time.
Yeah, I think, the turnaround times are really a factor of the balance of demand and capacity at the pressing plant level, and then the turnaround times for the delivery of components. So both compound and print have improved. There was a period of time in the not too distant past where print was sometimes taking 6 or 7 weeks. Compound was taking a long time because containers coming from Europe, where a lot of the material came from, were taking 7, 8, 10 weeks. There have been very dramatic improvements in that. Print is now more a standard 4 weeks. Containers coming from Europe are taking about 6 weeks. People are starting to stock up with more material, and there's been a very significant investment, and it continues in the manufacturing capacity. So all of those things really play into the industry getting back to turnaround times where they were before the pandemic, and then competition will push them down further. I think the outlook for the customer of a pressing plant is very good now going forward.
That's great news. I mean, one of the things that came up in our preliminary conversation with this group is one challenge that stands out is plating, right? I can't remember, Billy, if that was you, or Sean, if that was you.
I
As
mean,
far
it
as the
doesn't
plating
matter. It could be
process?
either of us, but sure. I mean, every single component of making a record is continually taxed, and plating, which is that initial phase, like you don't make a record without plating. There are obviously a number of excellent studios that are doing this work, that have been doing this work and continue to expand. And you have plants that have been doing it for a very long time that are doing it for even other pressing plants and other clients as well. I don't feel that I'm hearing much about that being a choke point at this juncture. With Sean, I have to echo the print and the PVC component. Those are the two biggest drags on getting things done. And I want to touch real quickly on the Apollo lacquer fire that happened in Feb of 20? No, 19? I don't remember. A long time ago. It could have been 20 years ago. I can't tell anymore. But that happened, and essentially everyone came out and said, oh my God, it's the end of the vinyl business. They were 80% of the lacquer production in the world. And what we all found out was that was blatantly not accurate at all. And that I have yet to hear from that point to the present of anyone that I talked to having a delay because they could not source a lacquer or have a lacquer cut or get plating done. So even though there is certainly an absolute importance for the business and the industry to find other lacquer producers in the world other than the one that exists, that isn't necessarily causing any bottlenecks to my knowledge. Obviously, we'd love to hear from someone else who has a different insight.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I mean, it was, virtually like the end of the world when that fire took place. And here we are today. So,
well, Steve, the vinyl is only up 4.5% last year. So it's the end of the world, right? I mean,
yep.
Going back to 2008, all the stories that come out periodically, and it's like clockwork, basically, like every half year, every full year, someone says like, oh my God, it's the end of the vinyl business. It's like, well, let's just keep doing smart business and be sensible and talk to each other and be open about what our challenges are. And I think we're all going to be okay. And I'm seeing all the questions come in about like, what are they doing? Are they playing the records? They're not playing records? I don't care. Are they buying the record? Are they excited about buying the record? They are? Fantastic. And some of them are probably confused because they're asked, hey, what do you have? Do you have a turntable? They're like, no, I don't have a turntable. I have a thing I put my vinyls on. So let's not worry about it. Let's just be happy. Let's just be positive and cautiously optimistic as Jazz has already instructed us to be.
Well stated, sir.
On that point of people playing them, I think it probably is pretty accurate that a lot of people don't play them, but I think that's okay. If you buy the record, you put it on your wall and you play the track on Spotify, you're paying the artist twice. I think that's a good thing. So
yeah, the industry commissioned, actually it was Music Biz and the RIAA, a survey of consumers, and really delved into that, especially again, that younger demo. Are they playing it? Are they displaying it? There was a sense that a lot of it was being displayed and not played. And that survey indicated that a lot more are playing it than we thought, which is good news. But as Billy said, case in point, I'll pivot to CDs, K-pop. Ask a K-pop fan if they even know what that shiny disc does, okay, when they buy that item. And we're happy to sell it to them at those price points, and they're happy to have them. So at the end of the day, we're providing a service however they're consuming it, so to speak. So Jazz, you have to juggle schedules, and you also have to deal with, in many cases, multiple SKUs for a singular release, right? So you've got tight timelines. If someone drops a master on you, says, I want this out, in 2 months, and then how to strategize and plan working with a plant like Sean's as to how to get it produced and released to meet those timelines. Can you kind of share that experience, what you have to go through?
Yeah, I mean, often the timelines are not something that we can always achieve as much as the artist would like us to, especially in the past 2 years. It was really difficult. We had to set expectations really clear of like, we can't turn around vinyl that quickly. you could let your digital go live and have CDs and cassettes on release day, and then have the vinyl come later and create 2 moments out of it. That's happened on some cases where we split the release. That can be effective in sometimes because you get 2 separate moments. But then in other times when you want to try and go for a chart position, it's important to have all the formats at once, and vinyl variants are really important in that situation. So it is, yeah, juggling and setting expectations for sure.
Yeah. And Billy, from your perspective, I mean, love it or hate it, variants are part of the ecosystem, right? It's not going away.
Look, you have to meet fans where they want to be met. You can't force them down one channel or another. And if an artist wants to have 20 variants, why are you going to tell them no? You know, I mean, there's a moment where it becomes a bit absurd, but I think that for the most part, if you are building a sound strategy from your inception point of setting the record up, and you have a clear plan from artist through management all the way down through label to distro about what it is you want to achieve, and variants are the method that help you achieve that plan, then use variants. And if you can do it another way, and you don't want to do variants, a lot of people are doing signed things. I mean, look at K-pop. They're making extravagant packages. It's trying to pretend that you know what fans really, really want. And hopefully you have enough people sort of around you that have some insight into that, so that you can deliver the result that everybody is trying to achieve, which hopefully is, you know, a really strong chart week, a really great satisfied fan base, you know, whatever. As an example, we did a lot of different things with Paramore just last week, from having variants in various accounts, but also having some D2C offers and having great in-store events. And I'm happy to say, you know, our strategy was drive a lot of fan engagement at independent retail, and the #1 selling SKU week 1 was the independent indie exclusive. So,
Yep.
You know, have a plan, build it, execute it, and then, you know, figure it out on the back end. Did you do it right? Did you not do it right? But I don't think variants are the scourge that, don't take this the wrong way, Sean, that supply chain make them out to be. I think that well thought out plans are always welcome. And the more you can talk to your plant about what you want to do with it and why, I think the easier it is to actually achieve the goal.
Yeah. Well, Sean, over to you then. You know, color variants, for example, there's some additional costs and some time added to that process. Is there not?
Yeah, look, I think that color variants are a fantastic thing for the vinyl industry, so they should be encouraged. There was a period when everybody was struggling to have colored compound in stock, where it became challenging if you had 8 variants for a new release and they were all different colors, and one of your compounds was stuck in a container on the ocean 3 weeks behind schedule. But you know, as I've said, that situation is rapidly appearing in our rearview mirror. So I would say bring it on. Variety is a great thing for vinyl.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jazz, can you also kind of get into, again, you know, how you're managing day and date when it comes to also the digital release? That's forcing the hand quite often, right? In terms of trying to line up physical. And I know it's a challenge, and I'm ask Billy that same question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not always the case. Certain artists, you can do the release separately, but a lot of the time, if you're going for a significant chart achievement in like the UK or the US, it's important to have all the variants, have like all the vinyl available on date, have signed copies. The more you can sell in that week 1, the better. So that means that we have to try and keep everything running on track. Plan way in advance, make sure you have loads of extra time factored in for if, you know, a shipment gets delayed or anything. Yeah, it's a lot of just planning everything as in advance as you can possibly do.
Yeah, Billy, how about you? I mean, it's got to be such a crazy moving target. You know, artist drops a release. Although you have somebody like Metallica, seems like, you know, they gave a reasonable window for all of us to kind of prepare and plan for that release. Not always the case.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think there's 2 pieces here. There's the first piece, which is the artist has a master they want delivered and they want it up as quickly as possible. And then really the rest of that just falls away. Like you just try to build after that, whatever you're going to build, because there's a desire to be up and active as soon as possible. And then there's the let's have a plan. I mean, sound like a broken record, but you know, when you're trying to align all the dates and all the variants and all the options, the logistics that go into it are in some cases insurmountable. So we're just trying to, as they say, grab the tiger by the tail and hope that you can control it. Because if you think about sort of the signed aspect of component wise, like someone wants to sign, I mean, I have no idea how Taylor Swift signed all those CDs, and she's got to have carpal tunnel if she'd signed them all. My God. But you know, you have to move print to where the band or the artist is. They have to sign it. They have to get it back. That has to be in time to be built into the collation to make the product finish good, to be sent out to where it needs to go, right? You have all these ancillary moving parts that you have no control over. You don't know when the weather in the Midwest is going to cause FedEx delays for 4 or 5 days, right? Like, it's just a matter of what is the plan? Try and stick to the plan as much as you can. And as soon as it goes sideways, you just got to have a B and a C and a D. And, you know, that's basically what we're all doing every day.
That's right. Jazz, I think it was you who coined the phrase when we were talking kind of offline, creative irrationality. Was it you or was that
I
Billy?
don't think it was me, but it sounds
I think it was you.
That was
Yeah.
Jazz.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote that down because I thought that was great. You know, I mean, not necessarily fully educated. It's like, look, it's done. I want it out now. Make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we educate the artists tend to be on what's realistic and what's actually achievable in the timeline that they're given. I think that's always really important because often people are coming into it just knowing they want their album out there. They don't know anything about vinyl manufacture, and nor should they necessarily. So it's just kind of educating them on what's possible and doing the best you can, and you know, switching to, if you can't get vinyl in time, getting CDs or something quickly, you know.
And then Sean, from your end, it might be interesting for those not in the know on how you ingest the orders. I mean, there's basically a schedule that you provide a lot of your major clients. It could be as many as 12 months out. I'm not sure what the window is for planning purposes, right? So it's not like you're sitting there fielding, you know, random requests, you know, from the 3 majors and all the key indies and the small ones as well. Can you kind of share how that works?
Well, the new release schedule with a, you know, for a medium or a larger size client will go out maybe 12 months or so. Won't be completely filled in. Obviously, 12 months out, it might be completely filled in about 2.5, 3 months out. You know, in the old days, pre-COVID, the standard turnaround time from submission of files to shipment of product was 8 weeks for new releases. You know, things moved pretty fast. Catalog orders were about 5 weeks. The catalog and new releases are important on the manufacturing side because if you have a balance of them, then it allows you to move the catalog around to accommodate the fluctuations that naturally occur with the new release program. And this is really an important part of trying to run the business so that the timelines can be shortened as much as possible to bring vinyl into that day and date conversation as much as possible. It's obviously a more complicated product than CD and more things can go wrong. So you have to have time reserves and different elements, but there's still a lot of runway ahead of the industry in terms of improvements on timing.
Yep. And we were talking about that there's a nice window right now because we haven't had a lot of major superstar releases taking up a lot of that capacity. Billy, I think you mentioned that before when we were talking offline, but you also mentioned too that, you know, here's a window of opportunity if we want to get this right now to start introducing, some would call it catalog, but new release in the format, a wide range of great recordings that span, I think you said, from like 95 to 2010 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talk a lot about Gen Z in the prior presentation. We need to build a continuity in our business from all aspects, whether it's artists, labels, producers, distros, pressing plants, music biz. We need those kids from that generation in this business helping us understand how we move it forward. If we don't do a good enough job of mining that catalog that's important to that generation and making sure that we're bringing it out for the first time, we're going to be sort of not to be negative, but spelling the end of our industry, as it were. Like, we got to build the continuity bridge. We have to do it aggressively. We have to do it smartly. And I think that we have a great opportunity right now to make sure that we're all looking at what that era of music is that has never been on LP, or very, very few titles have made it to LP so far, and ensure that we're bringing in the next generation of fans that want to be buying this format in the future.
Yeah, and I think Jamie, pointed out like a good example. For example, like My Chemical Romance. I mean, it's now we're catering to fans that are discovering vinyl, and they just can't get enough of bands along those
Sure.
lines. So I think that's absolutely spot on. And Jazz, from your perspective, as far as new releases are concerned, do you, from a planning standpoint, do you have a pretty wide window in terms of capacity with the plants that you deal with?
Now we do, yeah. I mean, we were really struggling the past 2 years, but now capacity is really opening up. It's pretty amazing. I think it might be early this year. I think we might see the stats when we look at it next year. I think might be that we have a bit of a dip in vinyl production at the start of the year, and then it gets busy again towards the end, because I'm sort of seeing a lot of our planning is kind of falling toward later in the year. But yeah, capacity is looking a lot better. And I think in the points about Gen Z, I mean, I think, like we're talking about vinyl variants, I think people posting their vinyl on Instagram and TikTok and things, and that generating the kind of interest in the younger audience is really important. It's something I've been very closely watching, like whenever we do a big vinyl release of us, like younger audience based artist, and then seeing it kind of spread on social media in terms of putting pictures of the vinyl up places. I think that's like really important. It shows the importance of variants and the growth of vinyl with that generation.
That's right. And so the industry's dirty little secret, if we can call it that, environmental issues, from your perspective, Jazz, you mentioned previously when we were talking, some interesting initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned previously that it's something that we get asked about a lot by artists all the time at the moment, is what environmental impact vinyl has, and is there anything that the artists and we can do to make sure we're like thinking about the environmental impact. So, Eco Mix vinyl is very popular. A lot of our artists choose it. It's also fun because they get different colors. And then if there's any sort of new grounds on PVC or any offsetting of emissions, I think Sean and Billy were talking about, I think that'll be really important as we go forward.
Yeah, Billy, your thoughts?
I mean, I think that if we're not paying attention to it, then we're essentially putting a nail in our coffin as well. Not, again, cautiously optimistic over here, Guy, but I think that you have to bring all to bear that you can. I'm certainly helping with R&D on the side of producing PVC that's not oil-based. That's certainly something that needs to happen. I know that there are already a couple companies in the world that are producing it, but the more you use it, the more they can make. It's this whole idea of cart before the horse sort of thing, but you need to be both at the same time. So, just get in and be aggressive. Obviously, everywhere you can recycle print, everywhere you can actually press a 140-gram record instead of a 180-gram record, you should do that. There are lots of things you can do. I do want to just mention one thing about the environmental impact of vinyl, and I want to be as fair, I guess, to all the ways in which we consume music. The energy it takes to make a record, you burn it one time, and then you can play that record for the rest of your life, and hopefully your kid's life and your grandkids' life, and etc. Every time you spin up a track on your smartphone, you're burning energy. So what's more environmentally friendly, streaming music or playing records? I would also argue that if we get to the point where we no longer have electricity, we can at least bring out Victrolas and hand crank old shellac discs, and we can still listen to music. So I'm a Luddite.
Well, all words of wisdom for sure. And Sean, from your perspective, if there was a plant-based solution coming your way, you're open to working with that, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'd say we're open and we want to actually encourage it. So we'll be, very significantly engaged with people who are working on those alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely. So prognosis for 2023 and 2024, Jazz? Summarizing?
Yeah.
Don't jump.
I think I think it's still I think vinyl's still going to increase in its popularity. I don't think we're going to see it slow down. I think we can only I think the popularity is only going to increase with younger bands as well.
Billy?
Through 8 weeks of this year, we're projecting the full year to be north of 53 million sold. So up 20-something% this year in the US.
It's great.
And we don't have a lot of big records right now. You know, we haven't had them for a while. So sky's the limit, man. I mean, look, we have to make good records. We have to be consistent in how we talk about those records. We have to have clear plans and let people buy what they want to buy and not confuse the hell out of consumer. There's lots of things that we need to keep doing to make music fans listeners. So we do all those things, then this is the surviving physical format for the future of the physical music business. So let's just keep doing smart business and let's not be dummies.
There you go. Sean?
I'm guessing a little slow in the first quarter, better a second quarter, and then a pretty strong second half of the year.
Yeah, look, so on that,
As Jazz mentioned.
yeah, and on that note, we didn't really touch on 2023, but the numbers I'm seeing, Billy, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, typically sluggish sales period after that second week or so in January. January was exceptionally strong for most retail, and February is looking really strong as well. And that's, you know, as you just heard, without a lot of major releases, that bodes pretty well for the immediate future, I think. And on that note, a lot of nods of the head. So I'm going to say that's an affirmative across the board. Great panel. Thanks for imparting your wisdom and also dedicating your time. Jazz, special shout out to you again. Grab a drink on our behalf. Send me the bill. Thanks so much. Best wishes to you in Sweden. Keep doing what you're doing. Jasmine Wimbledon, Billy Fields, and Sean Johnson. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
And with that, thanks everybody. And with that, we're going to segue into our next panel, sure to excite and stimulate ideas for further success in 2023, other physical products to consider. And here's our good friend, the CEO from A to Z Media, the wonderful and dynamic Sarah Robertson. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for the introduction. Very excited to be here to discuss things that are outside the norm of vinyl releases. And Steve, before you jump off, I am going to be calling on you, so don't run away.
I'm back.
Oh, super. We've seen at A to Z dramatically the changing environment around other products, whether it's incorporating interesting things into box sets and deluxe packaging, or people being very creative and imaginative with standalone merch products. Just in the last year or so, we've worked on anything from a Ken doll to hot sauce to pillows, all different sorts of things that we are collaborating with the labels to put something out that is really interesting and engaging. What I think is exciting about the panel that we have today is we have very different parts of the business represented. And I think it's really exciting for everybody on this to hear what people have to say and how things are changing. I want to pick up on one thing from the last panel, which was displayed, not played. And I think that speaks to how things are changing, that people want to own things outside just a traditional piece of vinyl or optical disc. So I'm going to turn it over. Hopefully all the panelists are on the screen now, if you're not on the screen. And don't be fooled, because Felix and I are almost tipping over the Anglo-American quota on this. So let me start here. Tyson, I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing, because I think you're embracing two fabulous worlds, the book, the world of publishing and the world of vinyl records and music.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's great to hear all this information and get to know some new faces. Though creatively, I'm a musician. I come from the book world primarily. I run Rare Bird Books. We publish about 50 books a year throughout the world. We also have a vinyl audiobook line where we take original and existing audiobooks, create sound design, and have companion products for books that we put out, plus partnering with other publishers and expanding in this world as well. So I got my start as a bookseller at Booksuit Bookstore in West Hollywood on the Sunset Strip. So I have a background from the retail side all the way up through manufacturing. Before that, as a teenager, I grew up working in printing factories. So I've run the gamut. And as far as interesting things that we've been doing, bridging these two areas, you know, as a record collector and a book lover, it isn't rocket science to put these things together. But it's been successful for us to find creative ways. And again, to echo the sentiments of what was discussed earlier with following what the fans want, that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to find ways for on musician memoirs, for example, ways that fans can also have literary products in the music or audio space that are more interesting than just having a straight narration. And A to Z has been a wonderful partner for us in manufacturing. And same with Precision. We've done some with them as well. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
I think just to, we're talking about changing demographics and across the board. One of the things that I think, Felix, you I'm sure deal with very often is you're working on major artists and major campaigns. So maybe you can speak to, what you're seeing in that space and share, that you've got a broad range of everything that you're covering on the merch side of things.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. So I'm the VP of Merchandise at WMX, which is Warner Music Group's artist and fan experiences side. We work across about 300 different artists, everyone from a few stadium acts, arena acts, down to the club shows and brand new artists. My team is a team of 7, and we are predominantly looking at all of the Atlantic and Electro artists. So at the moment, we just put out the Melanie Martinez album last week. The pre-order went live. It had 4 different box sets. So it's tying in the merchandise with the CD and kind of speaking to that super fan and creating the collectible elements that you kind of don't see everywhere. So everywhere from 4 exclusive t-shirts in this one, but also trying to find pieces, whether it be the Gorillas box set that I have behind me, or the plastic figurine, something that takes it out of our normal classic black t-shirt and more into that collector item.
Yeah, and that very nicely allows me to introduce Dennis, who really specializes on deluxe packaging and box sets. Dennis, what are you seeing the trends, like different things being included in box sets, or where people are moving in that arena?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. The deluxe box set is here to stay, I would say, first of all. And as the whole display, not play conversation has played out today, I think it's a very good case for box sets, and because people do want to consume what's in that packaging, since the music can be consumed so many other different ways. And ultimately, what we're trying to do with the deluxe sets is to really get into the story behind the music and the storytelling behind what was happening when it was made, who was involved, who were the producers, who were the engineers, what was the band up to at that time, and really dig into some narratives that perhaps fans weren't aware of. And so we really like to get into deep photo research, really good liner notes writing to tell that story, and then put some cool stuff in there, right? So in addition to the books and the vinyl and the music, can we put in some nice lithographs, some lenticulars, some things that would be suitable for framing, some replica ticket stubs, backstage passes, original fanzines, replicas, things of that nature. So we love to give you more things to hold, and to touch and consume as part of the overall deluxe package experience.
I mean,
And
that's, sorry,
Sarah,
so I was just gonna come to one thing. That's what we see the whole time, is that everybody is looking to tell the story and share the experience. And I think that's where the box sets really speak to that. So I apologize, Steve, you were gonna say.
Oh, no, my apologies. I just, I wanted to throw out a couple of props for Dennis too, as far as an introduction. He's got great background. He's a member of a band many of you know, the Exies, and also a Grammy Award winner for that amazing package, Beach Boys Smile. So his background's pretty extensive. So Dennis, I just wanted to get that out there. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Steve. And my last tour was opening for Motley Crue on the Carnival of Sims tour. So if anyone wants to hear some backstage stories about Motley Crue, just hit me up. I got a lot of them.
Steve, one of the things that I think was really interesting, we were speaking before on this, is looking at how merch is moving into retail. And as a distributor, I'm sure you're seeing this every day, and this is really your wheelhouse. And people, both the retailers and the labels that are on this call, I'm sure really interested to hear your perspective on how they can engage in maybe a new line of business on one of their, artists that they're working with in a way. It may be a little bit scary to go through that door. So any tips and advice?
Well, observations, whether they can be considered tips and advice, but I think, when you look at the D2C business that's developed, it kind of speaks to the next evolution of where we should go, which is more merchandise that makes sense. And, in the traditional music retail environment, online as well, you don't have to look much further than K-pop. I mean, that's the best case study out there, that we should be looking at more projects for contemporary artists as well, not just the great work that, say, Dennis does, you and me, and Rhino, but also for contemporary artists. I mean, the collectability, and it's not necessarily for every artist, but having memorabilia, we're seeing more signed items, and that's resonating since artists aren't always approachable or easily accessible. Having a piece of memorabilia like that to a hardcore fan is really meaningful and has value.
And how are you finding the stores, though, at being receptive to bring that in? I mean, I think that's from their perspective. Are you seeing stores being responsive to wanting to buy things outside of traditional releases?
Yeah, I think that's the bane of existence for most independent music stores. They've been survivors, and they haven't solely existed on vinyl or whatever physical format, du jour. I mean, at the end of the day, you'll find a lot of memorabilia, merchandise, and pop culture related items that resonate. A lot of them are very resourceful in the book end of it, which is one of the reasons why we asked Tyson to be on as well, and cross merchandising artist related books or pop culture books. And it's why not have that available. Just because you call yourself a record store doesn't mean that you have to limit yourself to that. So I think independent music stores have always been open to expanding their assortment. When you go into the stores, it's a representation of what they carry to a certain degree.
I mean, I think that speaks to the industry as a whole, where people are looking at how they can put their arms around the whole release, different aspects that go with it. One of the things, slightly to move a little bit to one side, Felix, I'm interested with what you're doing when you're using merch or other items that in a non-traditional way. So not accompanying a release, either as a VIP thing or pop-ups. It seems like you're touching a lot of other avenues of revenue to reach out to the fan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we know that there's always going to be merch at a concert. That's kind of a given. So for us, it's trying to find ways where we're engaging with the fans in a way where they're coming into our ecosystem. So if we know that you're coming in to purchase a VIP, we know that you're willing to spend a certain amount for that artist. We can almost bucket you into a super fan category. And then it's retargeting and marketing to you products that actually are going to be interesting. So we're assuming most people that are buying a VIP package would have engaged with in the music side, will have the album, will be aware of most of the products, but it's what bespoke items can we start to bring out? So planning through the next year, it's, how many are we going to bring out? thinking through anniversaries, thinking through evergreen campaigns for merchandise. So it's really starting to put almost a 2-year plan in place, which hasn't really been happening much in the merchandise. It's always been quite a reactive business, and starting to think through, if the fans coming out to this pop-up experience here in this city, then they're probably going to want to engage in the VIP offering. So how can we get them back in? How can we get that customer information and really start to kind of have them playing around the whole time? And that's really what the team's mentality shifted in the last 2 years, from just putting out constant just t-shirts and hoodies into just bespoke items and thoughtful marketing campaigns throughout it.
And that's really what we've seen as well, is things moving. Obviously, there's a place for the traditional, you know, soft goods, the t-shirts, the beanies, everything, what everybody wants that. But I think, you know, whether we're looking at box sets or bespoke items out there, things have got more creative, more weird and wonderful. You know, we've put things in box sets where we had to cut orange, like a beard hair in a box, because it was, you know, a little carton to go in there, to making, you know, a mayonnaise as an accompaniment, or getting people to put gloves on when they open it to tell a story. I think that, you know, that speaks to the curiosity of the fans and wanting to discover the artist. I mean, Dennis, when you were talking about you're putting box sets together with lots of different things, that process, I'm interested from your point of view on a recent project, how you decided everything that was going into it.
Well, for instance, on our, speaking of, you know, crazy packaging or boxes, we did a Paul McCartney singles box that had 87-inch singles in it. And it came in an actual wood crate designed to sort of mimic what a fine artwork would be shipped in, kind of thing, you know, complete with red cam straps and the whole thing. And then the secret sauce to that package was a test pressing. We just had random test pressings put into these boxes to just give the fans a little special something. And test pressings are, that's one of those cool things you can do that doesn't cost much. You know, you've already got them, and it's something that people who love vinyl really love to get their hands on some test pressings. So whenever we can find a clever or interesting way to integrate test pressings into a package, we do. Or perhaps they could be either not even necessarily sold, but given away as kind of a sweepstakes or a promo item to just draw attention to a given release or a given campaign. So there's definitely creative ways to do that. But honestly, there's always the cost component to how much extra stuff you can put in. You know, you've got to look at who is the artist and what is their fan base willing to pay for something. So when you look at McCartney, we've got a lot of well-heeled consumers, so we can probably put together a pretty pricey, expensive project and expect to sell it. For other bands like, you know, Kiss, for instance, maybe not as much, but we find ways to do cool things within a Kiss package. So it's not crazy expensive, but it still feels chock full of interesting items. And that's where paper goods become really interesting for us. Things like I'd mentioned earlier, like backstage pass replicas or, you know, tour passes, things like that. So it's really, you know, what will the ultimate project pricing support? And then what kind of creative assets do we have in the archives and in the vaults that we can deal with? And then we kind of put that together as cleverly as we can to make it all work.
Thank you. And just with Tyson, from your point of view, when you're looking at putting out books and you span the whole gamut of the books that you're doing, I mean, there's a very different price point for the book publishing. You know, you can run the gamut from very deluxe, even including a piece of vinyl or CD or something, to much more similar paperback releases. They're all telling a story, and I think that's what everybody's trying to do here, is tell a story. So when you're putting that together, I'm interested to hear your train of thought on your release schedules regard to packaging and presentation of it.
Yeah, it's I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, we're in a unique space on the book side of things. Creating unique variants to different products and putting them out, that's not really anything new, but merging these two worlds has been more of an experiential thing. Hearing the process of the box sets, that's similar to ours, but we have a studio of our own. We're working with our artists and musicians on bringing them in and creating unique products, so that it's a little bit of a different space in that respect. And then the other components of the bundles and the books and the records that we're producing can be mixed and matched. So I think the magic in what we're doing is this alternate product, this alternate universe that we're creating that seems to be fun, and it's tailor-made for each product, which I hope more publishers and companies take and run with this stuff, because it's a blast. And not only are we growing rapidly and doing well, but we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, Sarah can also mention a great example of that, but a little bit of a disconnect is Bono's autobiography, and now you've got U2's reimagined collection, which was kind of tied together with some of the live events that Bono was featuring, now their residency. So you see it out there. There's just some work that has to be done to further merge, and companies like Tyson's definitely helping to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're merging things together and also pushing them apart. I mean, when you're looking at how labels are running their D2C campaigns as well as their retail campaigns, they're really looking at adding different streams of revenue there and bringing things in. I think that one of the areas where we've seen, certainly with books that we're working on, is tied around anniversaries and celebrations. And I know that when we were talking before, it seems that during COVID, a lot of those opportunities were pushed to the side. Do you see opportunities coming back to celebrate some of these anniversaries of bands that are now putting out a box set, or putting out, as Bono's done, speaking to his biography and tying it together? That's to anybody who wants to speak. Sorry, it's tricky, isn't it? All at once.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead. Go ahead, Felix. Sorry.
From our business, there's never been a more important when you come to some of these huge anniversaries, because especially the merchandise side, a lot of the people won't fit into the t-shirt that they bought 30 years ago. So it's a way for us to bring back kind of the classic merch memorabilia in a tasteful way, as opposed to looking like a consumer grab, but also reimagining it, remixing designs up so it feels more streetwear contemporary. So then you're really starting to put an artist in a different space that you've not necessarily had them in before. And then you're engaging with new retailers, and it gives a whole new lease of life kind of to a project where, maybe the artist wasn't really thinking of supporting it, but we know that the fans were. So for us, we're kind of looking at those as still big flagship moments, and it's it's kind of crazy how quickly 10 years are going by on some of these projects we're working with the artists that we initially kicked off and are now kind of at a different point in their career.
I mean, it's the lost years, isn't it? I think that's one of the things that we're coming back to, something like that was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and looking at. So no, I know that I'm not sure who was speaking. Was it Steve or Dennis who were?
Yeah, I think Dennis, could speak to it, but look at the 50th anniversary, early 70s recording, some of the greatest, records of all time. And part of the problem is not being able to manage those, putting those assets together. You've got 1983 and some great, classic recordings as well for 40th anniversaries. Maybe Dennis can kind of speak to that challenge. There's only so much bandwidth.
Yeah, well, those big milestone anniversaries 100% drive a lot of what we do here. It's a very big focus, and certainly for the major artists, their managers or estates, as the case may be, are quite demanding to make sure that we don't miss those things. We got to make sure that we take advantage of the moment and make everyone remember how big this record was for you. We obviously did the Nirvana Nevermind last year, which was just massive. We did Rush Moving Pictures, which was massive. It just did the Beach Boys, Sail on Sailor, which was Carl and the Passions in Holland, was the 50th anniversary of that. So all of those things are very important to us as far as driving awareness, having that anniversary moment. But for artists who are still active and still on the road or able to be on the road, that's the real magic right now, because we went through those couple of years with nothing. We had no artist involvement. Maybe they would do some promo or some stuff online, but they wouldn't do any meet and greets. They wouldn't do any signing, and it was very hard to get that engagement. And now that artists are pretty much back on the road, all right, now we can base it off the tour. Now we can do the Talk Shop Live to kick things off with you, Steve. And there's a lot more energy right now. And I know certainly for us in recorded music, for years, it was like, oh man, it's all the money is in live, and then live just shut down, for 2 years. And then suddenly everybody was just spending all their money on recorded music, which was great. And now both are back in full force. And I think to be able to take advantage of artists back in the marketplace with merch, with deluxe sets for artists who are touring, with signed items as well, and with venues like Talk Shop Live, that just builds out the whole ecosystem for better fan experience.
I mean, I have to say, I think this is the most positive Music Biz panel I've ever been on. It seems that it's so exciting. It's like we're revisiting the old and introducing it to a whole new generation of fans, and in a different way. And there's so much creativity around it that as we look forward to this year, what are the things that you guys are looking forward to in 23? A release or a project, or just a trend that you're like, this is why I get up in the morning, this is why I do what I do. So Tyson, why don't we start with you?
Well, just about the excitement of jumping out of bed every day?
To 23. We've come out of supply chain constraints. Things are moving a little bit. There's a lot of, it feels like we're trying to make up for lost time, and that the positivity as we move through this year, I think, is something that's exciting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I just spent the last 2 weeks on the road in person doing sales conferences for the book industry and for American Booksellers Association. And it was exciting to see people just happy to be out. That's obvious that a lot of people would be excited to do that, but there is just this staying power of doing what we do and being excited about what we're doing. I mean, we aren't just cogs in our respective industries, churning out products that we don't care about. We're fans as much as producers in this respect, and I think that's what gives us a lot of advantage in the market from a curatorial point of view, but also from just from pushing momentum and grouping together. Quick note, we have a bookstore that we just opened up here, and it's essentially a collaboration between our company and 3 other publishers. So there's this banding together of people within the industry to have that common goal moving forward. Part of that is, combating certain corporate structures that are happening throughout lots of industries, but it comes down from the fan level and from the enthusiasm. And 2023 and beyond, we just couldn't be more excited.
Well, I mean, very well said. Felix, do you have any closing comments?
For me, it's really just starting to plan out through the rest of 23 far enough. I mean, we all work with artists. They're so last minute in coming up with some of these ideas that, I started putting the first few holiday items in front of some artists and managers and really getting ahead of that and into 24, because if we're doing these bespoke, beautiful pieces that are going to sit on your desk for kind of the rest of time, they take a lot of resources in getting them done right and giving it the true thing. So for me, it's just starting to get ahead of those pieces, which are the conversation, Christmas in March. I mean, it's the time to start having the conversation.
There you go. Dennis?
Yeah, 100% on that, Felix. We are well into our holiday preparations for this year already, and starting to look at next year. For 2023 and into 2024, I'm most excited about not having to say no so much. You know, if we had so many artists say, "Oh, can we get this out in 3 months?" Nope, we sure couldn't. You know, so if and can we get it on, you know, red translucent vinyl? Sorry, we're out of the red pellets. You know, if we can, you know, be kind of past that phase where capacity is opening up and color variants are available and lead times are shortening, that makes conversations with artists much more pleasant, quite frankly, and helps us do more business accordingly.
Awesome. Steve, you bring us
Yeah.
home?
Yeah, as much as I'd like to jump out of bed, I usually end up falling out of bed, but the, you know, the intent is there. At the end of the day, I think, you know, we've got so much to celebrate. I'm, you know, so excited about the fact again that we've got younger generations of fans that are into the proposition of ownership, that want a piece of their artist, they're connecting, and older artists as well. We don't have to apologize for the work that Dennis does. You know, it's exposing, you know, what you look at the top sellers of vinyl, and that includes Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon and Michael Jackson's Thriller, so on and so forth. And it's not just older people like me that are buying it, it's younger people discovering it. That's cause for celebration. We also need to try to cultivate some of these younger people into our industry too, to continue to, you know, to get more fresh ideas and get their perspective. And, you know, I know Music Biz does a really good job of trying to encourage that, but we need to do more of that, from diversification, you know, to again, trying to attract more of our youth into our industry.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a real pleasure, gentlemen, to have spent the last half an hour with you. And I hope that everybody that's on this enjoyed it as much as I did. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Appreciate
Sarah. And thanks everybody for carving out some important part of your day for sure. And look forward to seeing you at our next event. Music Biz is in Nashville, May 15th through the 18th. And I think we announced Let's Talk Physical on Record Store Day Town Hall, didn't we, Nicole?
So as you can see here, May 16th is
Yep.
Let's Talk Physical. The same day, we will have a Record Store Day Town Hall. And a few other things for the physical business will be announced on Thursday. We're going to be going out with a big programming announcement. So check your email and you'll get it all then.
Thank you, Nicole and Aaron and
Thank you,
everyone at
everybody.
Music Biz for helping to facilitate this.
Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
So long,
Thanks,
everyone.
bye-bye.